It starts before you speak, before you move, before anyone doubts you. You've already started doubting yourself. This is the part no one sees. The real war, the first battlefield. And it's not out there. It's in you, in the silence, in the moments no one claps, in the nights where your mind turns against you like a traitor wearing your face. You hear it, that voice telling you you're not enough, that you don't have what it takes. And the worst part, sometimes you believe it because it's not loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers, and it whispers in your own voice. That's what makes it so dangerous. Before you can face the world, before you can build anything strong, you have to face that voice. Not silence it, but confront it, challenge it. Break it down until you see where it came from. Who gave it to you? What moment planted it inside you and told you to carry it like it was yours? You've been fighting shadows, chasing approval, trying to outrun the noise outside, but the real war was never out there. It was here, right behind your eyes, right beneath your breath. Because the truth is, you can't break the world's illusions until you break your own. You've built beliefs on fear, on stories you told yourself when you were young and didn't know better, on wounds that never healed, on comparisons that never should have mattered. And every time you hesitate, every time you shrink yourself, that's the war resurfacing. The world will always try to hand you an identity, tell you who you are, what you're worth, what lane you're allowed to walk in. But if your mind accepts it, if you don't fight that first, then you never even made it to the real battlefield. You already lost. This is where it begins, in the stillness, where no one is watching, when it's just you and your thoughts and the weight of who you've been pretending to be. And this time, you don't run. You stand your ground. You listen to the fear, the guilt, the self-doubt, and you don't beg it to leave. You command it, not because you're fearless, but because you're finally tired of being ruled by what you never chose. Clarity doesn't come from noise. It comes from war. And the first time you choose to stop hiding behind your thoughts and start mastering them, that's the moment everything changes. Because when you win the war, inside, nothing outside can touch you. You've been talking to yourself your whole life, but no one ever taught you to listen. Not really. Not to the voice that whispers when the lights go out. Not to the one that tears you down when no one's around to defend you. That voice, the one you've learned to ignore, to numb, to silence with distractions. It's not just a whisper, it's your blueprint. Most people walk through life without ever questioning it. They think the things they say to themselves don't matter. But the truth is, the words you feed your mind shape the person you become. Every insult, every doubt, every lie you repeat becomes part of your identity. You wake up, and it begins. I'm tired. I'm not good enough. What's the point? You tell yourself you're not strong, and suddenly, you're weaker. You convince yourself you're not capable, and your actions match that belief. It's not the world that breaks you. It's your own voice. That quiet, steady erosion of self-belief that happens every single day. Until you look in the mirror and see nothing but someone who never became who they could have been. But here's what no one tells you. You don't have to believe everything. You think, that voice, it was built by fear, by pain, by past experiences that you never chose. And if it was built, it can be rebuilt. That's where it begins. Not with motivation, not with affirmations, but with awareness, with catching that voice in the act, hearing it whisper you're not enough, and answering back no. I decide who I am. You start slow. Maybe you're not ready to love yourself. Maybe you don't believe you're powerful yet, but you stop being your own enemy. You stop feeding the fire that's burning you alive. And every time you interrupt that toxic loop, every time you speak back with discipline instead of doubt, with truth instead of fear, you're rebuilding, rewiring. You're not here to be liked by your thoughts. You're here to lead them. You don't need your mind to comfort you. You need it to prepare you. You need it to train you. You need it to push you when everything else tells you to quit. Because when you master that voice, when you stop letting it destroy you and start making it your ally, you become something else. Not invincible, but unshakable. And the day that inner dialogue becomes your weapon, the day your voice says, "We don't quit, we rise," that's the day everything starts to change. They don't talk about what it costs you. When you care too much, you start bending. Not because you're weak, but because you're desperate to hold on, to be accepted, to be understood, to not lose the people, the praise, the plans. So you begin to overthink. You obsess over how they see you. You replay what you said. You wonder what they meant. You stretch yourself so thin trying to fit into places that don't even feel like home. And slowly, without even realizing it, you start disappearing, piece by piece. That version of you who used to be clear, focused, grounded, it gets lost under layers of attachment. Attachment to how it's supposed to be, to what they should have said, to the outcome. You thought you needed to feel whole. But here's the part you don't see until it's too late. Every time you cling to something too tightly, a person, a result, an image, you give it the power to break you, and eventually, it does. You weren't meant to be controlled by approval. You weren't meant to drown in outcomes. You weren't meant to carry every conversation, every failure, every silence like it defines your worth. Because the truth is, detachment isn't cold. It's not about shutting off. It's about clarity, about building space in your mind, where your peace can breathe, where you're not at the mercy of every high and low around you. It's when you finally start thinking differently, when your thoughts stop chasing validation and start asking, what's real? What's mine to carry? What am I becoming? You stop reacting. You observe. You stop begging to be chosen. You choose yourself. And in that space, you begin to see everything differently. Their silence doesn't shake you. The outcome doesn't define you. The chaos doesn't reach you. Because you're not tethered to things you can't control. You're grounded in what you can. Your discipline, your perception, your direction. Stillness isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's becoming untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because you finally understand what's worth feeling. You won't find your strength in chasing, clinging, or craving. You'll find it the day you let go and realize nothing outside you ever had the power to complete you. That's when your confidence comes back. That's when your mind sharpens. That's when your power begins. Not from attachment, but from distance, from the space you create, to finally see who you are without the noise. You've been taught to speak, to explain, to defend yourself. Every time someone doubts you, questions you, disrespects you, your instinct is to respond, to prove something, to not be misunderstood. But what you don't realize is, there's power in saying nothing. There's clarity in observing. There's control in not reacting. You don't need to announce your presence to be felt. You don't need to argue to be right. You don't need to speak to hold power. The strongest part of you isn't in how loud you get. It's in how much you see when everyone else is too busy trying to be seen. Most people walk into a room needing attention. You walk in and you watch. You listen, not just to words, but to hesitation, to deflection, to the way people avoid eye contact when truth grazes too close. Quiet perception isn't passive, it's strategic. It's how you learn what people are hiding, how you study their moves before they even make them. And the ones who can't sit in silence, they usually can't sit with themselves either. They start unraveling when you don't give them the reaction they expect. Because silence makes people uncomfortable. It makes them fill in the gaps with their own guilt, fear, and insecurity. And when you learn to use that silence, you stop playing defense. You start setting the pace. You stop needing to prove your worth. You already know it. You stop trying to fix how others see you. because how you see them becomes your edge. You start reading people differently. You see their patterns. You hear what's not being said. You spot the cracks behind the confidence, the fear inside the anger, the weakness under the noise. That's when you realize dominance isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself, your emotions, your impulses, your reactions. You don't owe anyone an immediate answer. You don't need to match chaos with chaos. You don't need to flinch every time someone tries to poke where you're still healing. You just stay calm. You stay still. And in that stillness, you take everything in. You don't just see people. You understand them. And that understanding, that's what makes you powerful. Because while they speak to be heard, you stay quiet to see. And once you see clearly, you never move the same again. You think your thoughts are your own, but they're not. Not really. You didn't choose half the things you believe. They were planted, passed down, echoed so many times, you started calling them yours. What you hear, what you watch, what you scroll past at midnight when you're too tired to think for yourself. That's what's shaping your mind. Not your will, not your wisdom, just repetition, noise. And here's the part that should unsettle. You're being built by things you didn't choose to filter. You're being programmed in silence. You start the day with opinions that aren't yours. You doubt yourself because some stranger made you question your pace. You crave things you never valued until someone convinced you to. That's not thinking, that's echoing. And if you're not ruthless about what you let in, you'll wake up one day with a mind that doesn't even feel like it belongs to you. You'll be distracted, reactive, weak-willed, not because you were born that way, but because you never guarded the gates. A strong mind isn't just built by discipline. It's protected by silence, by cutting the noise, by asking, why am I watching this? Why am I still listening? What is this doing to me? Every input has a cost. Some make you sharper. Some slowly rot your ambition, your focus, your strength, until you become the kind of person who moves but never acts, who speaks but says nothing real. You want to think like a warrior, then start acting like your mind is the battlefield. Because it is. If you let everything in, don't be surprised when your thoughts feel crowded, when your confidence disappears, when you stop trusting your own instincts. You've been feeding on garbage and wondering why you feel hollow, but you can change that. Not by doing more, by cutting more out. Filter it all. The voices, the content, the endless stream of shallow stimulation that keeps your mind too busy to think for itself. And when you do, you'll start to hear something new. A voice that doesn't come from outside. A voice that's clearer, colder, stronger. Yours. And for the first time, you won't just be reacting. You'll be choosing. Deliberately, powerfully. Because your mind will no longer be an open door. It will be a fortress, and not everything gets in. You keep trying to escape the silence. Music always on. Voices in your ear. A screen lighting up your face. Anything to avoid being alone with yourself. Because deep down, it's not the silence you fear. It's what shows up in the silence. The unfinished thoughts. The emotions you've buried. The questions you've avoided for years. That's the real reason you stay busy, because solitude forces you to feel what distraction lets you ignore. But what if that silence isn't a threat? What if it's an invitation? Because there's something that happens when you finally stop running, when the noise dies down, when there's no one left to impress, no performance to keep up, no feedback to validate who you are, just you. That's where it starts. Not the comfort, but the discomfort. The kind that forces you to look inward and ask, who am I when no one's watching? What do I believe when no one's speaking into me? Solitude is where clarity is born. It's where the fog starts to lift, and your thoughts stop mimicking the world around you. It's where opinions you've absorbed get stripped away, and what's real finally has room to breathe. You stop chasing the approval. You stop reacting to noise, and something inside you clicks into place. That quiet knowing that you don't need to be seen to be strong. You don't need to be heard to be dangerous. Because the man who sits with his own mind and doesn't flinch, that man is not dependent. He's not desperate. He doesn't fear solitude because he owns it. He doesn't avoid silence because he rules in it. And in that space, you start to sharpen. Your thoughts grow heavier, more exact, more decisive. You start to think independently. You weigh your beliefs like weapons, testing what's true, discarding what's weak, and every time you return to that solitude, you come back stronger, calmer, less shaken by chaos. You don't need permission, you don't need distraction, you don't even need company. You've become enough, on your own, in your own mind. And that's where the danger lies for the rest of the world. Because the person who isn't afraid to be alone, isn't afraid to think differently, isn't afraid to move alone, isn't afraid to lead, even if no one follows. There's a moment when someone looks you in the eyes, expecting fear, and finds none. No reaction, no intimidation, just quiet recognition. That moment, that's where their confidence begins to crack. Not because you said anything, but because they realized you saw through them. You didn't buy the performance. You didn't flinch at the volume. You didn't mistake their confidence for truth. And that's what breaks people. Not aggression, not threats, clarity. Because most people, they're not as strong as they pretend to be. They just got really good at hiding the parts they don't want seen. Their insecurity, their fear of being exposed, their fragile ego dressed up in polished words and loud gestures. But when you stop getting pulled in, when you stop needing to prove yourself in every room, something changes. You start watching instead of reacting. You start noticing the inconsistencies, the hesitation, the bluff, and suddenly, they don't feel so powerful anymore. You don't collapse someone by out-talking them. You collapse them by showing them you're not playing the game. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to see. And when someone feels seen fully, deeply, beyond the surface, they either crumble or they run. It's not cruelty, it's awareness. Because the truth is, most of the time, their confidence was never real. It was armor. It was a mask. And when you make it clear you're not fooled, that mask starts to fall apart. But here's the catch. You only get this power when you've faced your own illusions first. You only get to pierce others when you've stripped yourself down, torn apart your own masks, stood naked in your flaws, and refused to look away. You've done the work. You've sat with your own pain. And now, nothing about their show impresses you, because you know what real strength looks like, and it doesn't need applause. So when they show up with arrogance, when they try to shake you with their volume, their status, their need to be above you, just look at them, calm, still, unmoved. You don't blink, you don't chase, you don't shrink, because you know something they don't. Their confidence ends where your perception begins. And once you see them, really see them, they can't hide, and they can't hold power over someone they can't fool. You keep getting caught in the moment. You feel disrespected, and you react. You feel overlooked, and you chase. You feel anger, and you explode. But every time you let emotion make your move, you lose the game, because the world doesn't reward feeling. It rewards control. And right now, you're giving your power away to every trigger that finds you unprepared. You want to be strong, but strength isn't loud. It's not explosive. It's measured, cold, tactical. You've been taught to react like it proves you care, but it doesn't. It only proves you're predictable, and predictable people are easy to manipulate, easy to provoke, easy to play. So the question becomes, when will you stop moving off emotion and start moving off intent? That doesn't mean you shut your feelings down. It means you don't serve them. You see the anger. You feel the sting. You acknowledge the insult. But then, you pause. You analyze. You plan. You think in moves. Because every situation you face is just that, a board, and you're either playing the board or being played by it. When someone tries to push you emotionally, it's not personal, it's a distraction. If you take the bait, they win. If you respond with precision, they lose the moment they try. That's the shift, from reaction to response, from impulse to control, from noise to strategy. And the more you train that mindset, the more you start to see differently. You don't just feel what's happening, you calculate what's next. You don't just respond to what they said, you consider why they said it. And suddenly, you're not just surviving moments, you're designing outcomes. Emotion makes you immediate, strategy makes you inevitable. So, next time your blood starts to rise, next time your chest tightens and your instincts scream to fire back, don't let that be the moment you see it. See the setup, see the pattern, see the opportunity, because that's the moment you stop being led by what they want you to feel and start leading where you want to go. You don't win by feeling everything. You win by mastering what you feel and turning it into the next move they never saw coming. You didn't choose the pain. You didn't ask for it. It came without warning, without permission, and it left a mark. Somewhere along the way, the pain became part of you. You carry it now, quietly, every day, in your decisions, in your hesitation, in the way you brace for things to go wrong. And maybe no one really sees it, but you do. It's there when the room gets quiet. It's there when you doubt yourself before you even try. That kind of pain, if left alone, it festers. It turns into a prison. And worse than that, it convinces you that it's all you'll ever know. But here's the shift. Pain isn't meant to hold you. It's meant to shape you. Not as a victim, but as someone who decided that if they had to suffer, they would damn well make sure it meant something. See, when you stop running from your pain, when you stop resenting it and start studying it, you take your power back. You stop asking, why me? And you start asking, what now? Not out of defeat, but out of determination. Because pain, when left untouched, will control you. But pain, when understood, will teach you. And once you let it teach you, you start building something out of it. You become sharper, less naive, more grounded. You see things others miss, because you've already been through what they fear. That's where your edge comes from. Not talent, not comfort, but the fact that you've hurt and refuse to let that hurt define you. You don't erase the pain, you refine it. You stop pretending it never happened and instead make it the foundation of who you've become. Because when you let pain become a philosophy, you stop breaking under it. You start rising through it. You're no longer the one who flinches. You're the one who adapts. You're the one who keeps going when it still burns. Because now, you understand what the fire is for. This isn't about pretending you're fine. This is about becoming someone so deeply familiar with pain that it no longer scares you. It respects you. So don't waste what hurt you. Don't bury it. Don't let it rot inside you. Use it. Study it. Let it sharpen the way you think, the way you move, the way you build. Because the moment pain becomes your philosophy is the moment it loses its power to control you. And that's when you finally become dangerous. They're not supposed to understand you. That's not the point. You didn't rebuild your mind for applause. You didn't go through the dark, question everything, tear yourself down and start over, just so someone else could feel comfortable with the outcome. They'll ask why you've changed, why you don't react the way you used to, why you don't speak as much, why you don't chase the same things anymore. And there will be moments, quiet, heavy ones, where you'll feel the pull to explain, to let them in, to prove that the strength you carry now was earned. But you don't owe that to anyone, because no one was there when your thoughts turned on you. No one watched you break in silence. No one sat with you when you questioned everything you believed just to survive another day. They weren't there for the rewiring, the isolation, the discipline, the decisions that didn't make sense to anyone but the version of you trying to claw his way out. So when they look at you now, calmer, sharper, harder to read, and they don't get it. That's fine. Let them stay confused. You're not here to be decoded. You're not here to reassure anyone who never asked how deep the storm was before the calm showed up. The mind you've built wasn't shaped to entertain. It was forged to protect, to lead, to endure. And the irony is, the stronger your mind becomes, the more they'll misjudge you. Call it cold, call it distant, call it arrogance. Let them. Because what they're really feeling is the quiet discomfort of standing next to someone who doesn't need validation anymore. Someone who doesn't flinch, who doesn't explain, who simply is. You paid in full for the clarity you carry now. So hold it close, guard it, and never shrink it down just to be understood by people who never saw the cost. Let your presence be misunderstood. Let your silence unsettle them. Let your evolution speak for itself. You didn't come this far to narrate your transformation. You came this far to live it, without permission, without apology, and without ever having to explain the mind you built to survive what would have destroyed them.